My name is Olivia Barnes. I'm 35 years old, a family lawyer living in Seattle. I've seen my fair share of ugly custody battles and heartbreaking betrayals, but nothing could have prepared me for what my own sister did to me that night. It was raining, the kind of rain that makes the whole world smell like metal and mud. I was in my apartment, reading through case files when I heard a knock. Not a friendly one, a sharp, desperate pounding. When I opened the door, my world stopped. Two little kids stood there, a boy about 6 and a girl maybe 3, both soaked, shivering, holding a crumpled envelope. There was no adult in sight. I bent down, confused. "Sweethearts, where's your mommy?" The boy handed me the note with trembling fingers. I opened it. The handwriting was rushed, but I knew it immediately. It was my sister Vanessa's. It read, "Don't call me. I'll ruin your career." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Vanessa, my only sister, the person I grew up sharing everything with, had dumped her 2 children on my doorstep and vanished. I looked at those kids again, tiny faces filled with confusion, fear, and hunger. My hand shook as I picked up the girl, who clung to my neck like she'd known me forever. I was furious. Furious at Vanessa for doing this. Furious at myself for still caring. But what was I supposed to do? Close the door and pretend they weren't mine to deal with? No. That night, I took them in. I made warm soup. I wrapped them in blankets. And while they slept on my couch, I sat on the floor, staring at that note over and over again, wondering what kind of darkness could make a mother abandon her children like this and threaten her own sister for good measure. But 1 year later, when I finally walked into that courtroom, holding the evidence in my hands, evidence that would expose everything Vanessa had done, I watched her crumble. She fell to her knees, sobbing, trembling. "Please, Olivia," she whispered. "Give me a way to live." And in that moment, everyone in the courtroom turned to look at me, because they knew what I held could destroy her forever. But before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, before I tell you why she begged, I want you to know how we got there. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? Because this story isn't just about betrayal, it's about what kindness costs and how love can sometimes look like war. I grew up in a small town in Oregon. Our parents weren't rich, but we had enough. Mom was a nurse, Dad was a high school teacher, and Vanessa and I were as close as sisters could be, at least when we were young. She was the pretty one, the daring one, the girl everyone noticed at school while I stayed buried in my books. Even as kids, Vanessa knew how to get attention. She could charm anyone, talk her way out of any punishment, and convince me to cover for her every time she got into trouble. But as we grew older, the cracks showed. She started lying a lot. About money, about jobs, about men. And I started cleaning up her messes, paying her rent, bailing her out of bad decisions, even lying to our parents to protect her. When Mom passed away, I thought that would bring us closer. Instead, it pushed her further away. She stopped calling, stopped showing up for holidays. I found out later she was in Las Vegas, bartending, dating a man twice her age who had money and a record. I remember calling her one night. I begged her to come home, to think about her kids, Ethan and Lily. She laughed. "Olivia," she said, "I'm not you. I don't do boring." That was the last real conversation we had. Until that night, she dumped them at my door. The first few days with Ethan and Lily were chaos. Ethan barely spoke. He'd just sit by the window, hugging his backpack. Lily had nightmares every night, screaming for her mom. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a mother. I barely even knew what their favorite foods were. But I tried. Every morning, I'd pack lunches, drop Ethan at school, and take Lily to daycare before heading to court. I'd come home exhausted, sometimes crying in the shower because I was terrified I'd fail them. And then one morning, as I was braiding Lily's hair, she looked up at me and whispered, "Aunt Liv, are you gonna leave too?" That question broke something in me. I hugged her so tight I thought I'd crush her. "No, baby," I said. "Never." From that moment on, I decided I'd be their safe place no matter what. Even if Vanessa never came back. Weeks turned into months. I didn't hear a word from Vanessa. But the more I took care of her kids, the more questions I had. Why would she disappear like that? Why threaten me? Then strange things began happening. First, an envelope showed up in my mailbox with no return address. Inside were photos of Vanessa with some dangerous-looking men. One of them I recognized. He'd been arrested in one of my older cases. Then Ethan started saying things in his sleep. Mommy said don't tell. Mommy said bad, people get mad.
I didn't know what that meant.
But something was very wrong. And one night, it became clear just how wrong things were. It was late, past midnight. I'd just put the kids to bed when I heard a car stop outside. Headlights flashed through the blinds. Then footsteps. Heavy ones. I froze. Someone was walking toward my door. I peeked through the peephole, and my heart stopped. It was him, the man from the photo. He lifted his hand and knocked.
Once. Twice.
Slowly. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then he leaned closer to the door and said, in a low, cold voice, "You've got something that doesn't belong to you." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Vanessa running away. Something darker was chasing her, and now it had found me. The knock on the door didn't stop. It grew louder, heavier, each thud echoing through my chest like a heartbeat I couldn't control. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling. My first thought was to call the police, but what would I say? That a stranger was at my door, asking for something he claimed didn't belong to me? The kids were asleep upstairs. I couldn't risk waking them or scaring them. So I stayed still, holding my breath, praying he would go away. After a long minute, the knocking stopped. Silence filled the house. Then footsteps again.
Slow.
Fading. I peeked through the blinds, just in time to see a black car drive off down the street. No license plate. No sound but the rain. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, the note Vanessa left clutched in one hand, and those strange photos in the other. My sister wasn't just hiding, she was running from someone dangerous. But why involve me? Why threaten to ruin my career if I called her? The next morning, I drove Ethan to school like nothing happened. But he could tell something was wrong. He stared at me with those big brown eyes of his, Vanessa's eyes. "Aunt Liv," he said softly, "is someone mad at you?" That question hit me like a stone. I forced a smile. "No, honey. Why do you ask?" He hesitated. "'Cause Mommy said if the bad men find you, they'll take the box." The box. I almost slammed the brakes. "What box?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Ethan bit his lip and looked away. "She said it's a secret." That was the moment I realized the kids knew more than they were letting on. When I got home, I started searching every inch of the house. Closets. Storage boxes. Under the bed. Then I checked the kids' bags. In Lily's backpack, beneath her coloring books, I found it. A small wooden box wrapped in old newspaper. No lock. No label. Just heavy. I opened it. Inside were stacks of cash, thick bundles held by rubber bands. And beneath the money, photos, documents, passports. All under different names. Fake ones. Vanessa's face was in every single one. My stomach dropped. She'd been running under different identities. And whoever that man was last night, he wanted this box. I closed it quickly and hid it inside my safe. But from that moment on, I knew we were in danger. That night, as I tucked Lily in, she whispered, "Mommy said she'll come back soon." I smiled weakly. "I hope so, baby." But deep down, I knew Vanessa wasn't coming back soon. Not the way she left. And I was right. Because 2 days later, I got a phone call that changed everything. "Miss Barnes." The voice on the line was male, professional. "This is Detective Miller from the Portland Police Department. We need to ask you a few questions about your sister, Vanessa Reed." I froze. "What about her?" He sighed. "We believe she may be involved in a large-scale fraud operation. We've been tracking her for months. Do you have any idea where she might be?" Fraud? My heart sank. I looked over at the kids playing quietly in the living room and whispered, "No, officer. I haven't heard from her in a while." But even as I said it, I knew the truth would catch up to us. And that night, When I opened my front door to grab the mail, I saw something lying on the porch. A single photo. It was me, taken through my living room window. I wasn't just protecting Vanessa's kids anymore. I was being watched. For the next few days, I lived in constant fear. I started double-locking my doors, checking the windows, making sure the kids stayed close. Every time I walked to my car, I looked over my shoulder. Every stranger on the street felt like a threat. I wanted to go to the police, but the note Vanessa left haunted me. Don't call me. I'll ruin your career. And I knew she could. Vanessa had seen things, heard things. She knew private details about my cases, details that, if twisted, could destroy my reputation in seconds. Still, I couldn't live like this. So, I decided to find answers myself. One night, after putting the kids to bed, I drove to an old address I'd found on one of Vanessa's fake passports. It was a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. I knocked on the door marked 2B. No answer. But when I turned to leave, the door creaked open slightly. I pushed it gently and stepped inside. The place was empty, except for a small table, a broken lamp, and a photo lying face down. I picked it up. It was Vanessa holding Ethan and Lily. Her smile looked forced. Behind her, a man's shadow loomed on the wall. That's when I heard the floor creak behind me. I spun around. A woman stood there, wearing a hoodie and dark sunglasses. She looked rough, tired, but familiar. Vanessa? I whispered. She took off her glasses. Her eyes were bloodshot, her face thinner than I remembered. Liv, you shouldn't have come here. I stepped closer, my voice trembling. Where have you been? Do you have any idea what you've done? Those kids. I know, she snapped, her voice cracking. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted them to grow up hating me? Then why? I shouted. Why leave them? Why threaten me? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Because if they find out where the money went, we're all dead. I froze. What money? She stepped back, shaking her head. I can't tell you. Just take care of them, Liv. Don't let them near anyone. Before I could ask another question, she turned and ran out the back door into the darkness. I chased her, but by the time I reached the street, she was gone. And as I stood there, breathless and cold, I realized she'd left something behind. A USB drive. It was lying on the floor where she had stood. When I got home, I plugged it into my laptop. Dozens of files appeared, bank records, hidden accounts, names of companies. And then I saw it, a document titled, Client List, State Officials. My blood ran cold. Vanessa wasn't just part of a scam. She had evidence of corruption involving powerful people. And now, I had it. For weeks, I didn't know who to trust. The USB drive felt like poison in my hands. If the wrong people found out I had it, we'd all be in danger. I stopped going to work for a while and focused on keeping the kids safe. I told the law firm I needed personal leave. My boss didn't ask questions, thankfully. But then strange things began happening again. A car would park outside our house at odd hours. The phone would ring, and no one would speak. Once, someone even broke into my office downtown. Nothing stolen, but my files were scattered across the floor. It was clear they were looking for the USB. One evening, as I was making dinner, I heard glass shatter upstairs. I ran up to find Ethan standing near the window, pale as a ghost. There was a man, he whispered. He was looking inside. That night, I decided to take the kids and leave town. We drove to a small cabin near the coast that belonged to one of my friends. No one knew about it, not even Vanessa. For a few days, things were quiet, peaceful. Ethan started smiling again. Lily laughed when I chased her through the garden. For a moment, it felt like we could finally breathe. But peace doesn't last forever. One morning, while I was making pancakes, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. You can't hide forever, Olivia. Bring the drive. I dropped the phone. That afternoon, I went into town to buy groceries, taking Lily with me. When I returned, the cabin door was wide open. Ethan? I called out. Silence. My heart raced as I stepped inside. The living room was empty. The kitchen, silent. Then I saw it. A note on the table. If you want the boy back, come alone. I drove like a madwoman. My hand shook so badly, I could barely keep the wheel straight. The address written on the note led to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. When I arrived, the place was dark and empty. Broken windows, rusted gates, the sound of dripping water echoing in the distance. "Ethan," I shouted. A voice answered, calm and cold. "You came alone. Good." A man stepped out of the shadows, the same one who'd come to my door weeks earlier. He smiled. "You have something that belongs to us." "Where's my nephew?" I demanded. He gestured to a door behind him.
He's fine.
"Give me the drive, and you can have him." I pulled it out from my pocket, pretending to hesitate. "You promise you'll let him go?" He smirked. "Do you really think you're in a position to bargain?" Before I could answer, a voice shouted from behind me, "Freeze! Drop it!" Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. The police. The man turned to run, but within seconds, officers surrounded him. Detective Miller approached me, his gun drawn. Ms. Barnes stepped back. They arrested the man on the spot. When they opened the door behind him, Ethan ran out and threw himself into my arms, sobbing. Later that night, at the station, Detective Miller looked at me with curiosity. "You've been holding back, haven't you?" I sighed. "You have no idea." When I gave him the USB drive, he spent hours going through it. Then he looked up and said, "This isn't just about fraud. These files could bring down half the city council." That's when I realized the evidence in my hands didn't just threaten criminals. It threatened powerful people. And if Vanessa had been running to protect it, she wasn't just a criminal. She was a target. A week later, they found her. Vanessa was arrested in Reno. When they called to inform me, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. She was alive. The kids didn't understand. Ethan asked if Mommy was coming home. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. When I visited her in jail, she looked smaller, broken. Her once perfect hair was a mess, her eyes tired. She looked up when she saw me. "Liv." I didn't say a word. "I didn't mean to drag you into this," she whispered. "I just didn't know what else to do." "Then why threaten me?" I snapped. "Why put your own children through this?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because if they knew I left them with you, they'd have gone after you first. I had to make you hate me." For the first time in a long time, I saw my sister. Not the liar, not the manipulator, but the scared woman underneath. But that didn't change what she'd done. The trial began a month later. I was called as a key witness. The courtroom was packed, reporters, officials, and the very people whose secrets were on that drive. When I walked to the witness stand, Vanessa looked at me with trembling eyes. And as I presented the evidence, the drive, the money trail, the documents she'd hidden, her face crumbled. Each word I spoke cut deeper. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. By the time the judge adjourned, Vanessa was sobbing uncontrollably. The bailiff tried to guide her away, but she broke free and crawled toward me, grabbing my hand. "Please, Olivia," she begged. "Give me a way to live." The entire courtroom fell silent. Cameras flashed. Everyone waited for me to respond. But I said nothing. Because forgiveness is never that simple. Weeks passed after the trial. The headlines read, "Massive fraud scandal exposed by attorney Olivia Barnes." My phone rang nonstop, reporters, colleagues, even strangers thanking me for my courage. But at night, when the noise stopped, I'd sit by the window and think about Vanessa's face that day, her eyes full of regret and fear. Ethan and Lily slowly began to heal. They called me Mom now, though I never asked them to. I made sure they had everything they needed: love, safety, peace. But one evening, as I was putting Lily to bed, I heard a knock at the door. A soft, shaky knock. When I opened it, Vanessa stood there. She'd been released early for cooperating with the authorities. She looked fragile, almost ghost-like. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I hesitated, my heart heavy. "Vanessa, why now?" She looked at the kids through the window. "Because I have nothing left. No friends.
No job.
No life. Her voice broke.
Please live.
Give me a way to live. I stood there for a long time, the rain falling softly between us. Part of me wanted to shut the door. The other part, the sister inside me, wanted to believe she could change. I took a deep breath. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, a black car turned the corner and stopped in front of my house. Vanessa froze. Her face turned pale. "They found me," she whispered. Then the car door opened, and a man stepped out. The sound of the car door slamming shut echoed through the quiet street like a gunshot. I froze, my hand still on the doorframe, as Vanessa took a step back, trembling. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lived, it's them." A tall man in a black coat started walking toward the house. The headlights from his car lit up his face, sharp jawline, cold eyes, the same man I'd seen months ago at my doorstep. The one who'd said, "You've got something that doesn't belong to you." I pushed Vanessa inside and locked the door. "Get the kids," I hissed. "Go to the basement now." She hesitated, eyes wide. "What about you?" "I'll handle it. Go." I turned off the lights and peered through the curtain. The man was joined by two others, moving closer. They weren't here to talk. I grabbed my phone and dialed Detective Miller. "This is Olivia Barnes. They're here, the men from the case. Send help now." "Stay where you are," he said firmly. "Lock every door. We're on our way." But I knew the police wouldn't arrive fast enough. Then came the pounding, heavy fists slamming against the door. "Open up, Olivia," the man's voice drawled. "We just want to talk." I grabbed the baseball bat I kept behind the couch. Old habit from living alone. My heart hammered in my chest as the pounding grew louder. The front window shattered. "Mommy!" Lily screamed from the basement stairs. "Stay down there," I shouted. Glass crunched under heavy boots. The men were inside. One of them grabbed me from behind. I swung the bat hard, hitting his arm. He grunted, dropping something metallic. I kicked it away and ran toward the kitchen. Another man lunged at me. I slammed the pantry door into his face, buying a few seconds. Sirens wailed in the distance. "Closer." "Time's up," one of them snarled. "Where's the drive?" "It's gone," I yelled. "The cops have it now." That stopped them. The man's face twisted in rage. "You're lying." "Check the news," I said, forcing a smirk I didn't feel. "You're already done." Outside, red and blue lights flashed. The men looked at each other, panic flashing in their eyes. "Move," one shouted, and they ran for the back door just as police cars surrounded the house. In seconds, officers swarmed in.
Shouts.
Footsteps. The metallic clink of handcuffs. It was over. Detective Miller found me sitting on the floor, still clutching the bat. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely speak. He crouched beside me. "You did good, Olivia. It's finished now." But as I looked toward the basement door, where Vanessa was holding her kids, I knew it wasn't really finished. Because no matter how many arrests were made, my sister's choices had already changed all our lives forever. The weeks that followed were quiet, but heavy. The news covered the arrests, calling it the Reed scandal, after Vanessa's last name. The men who broke in were tied to a criminal ring that had been using fake charities to launder money. Vanessa's testimony helped the FBI uncover the last of them. She became, in their words, a cooperating witness. And yet, the damage was done. People in town whispered whenever they saw me at the grocery store. Some called me brave. Others said I'd betrayed my own blood. But all I cared about were the two little faces waiting for me at home. Ethan had started therapy. Lily was back in preschool. Slowly, laughter returned to our home. Quiet, careful laughter. Vanessa stayed with us for a while. At first it was awkward, me avoiding her, her avoiding my eyes. She cooked breakfast one morning and tried to smile. "Remember when we used to fight over who got the last pancake?" I didn't answer. "I'm trying, Liv," she whispered. "I'm trying to make it right. But forgiveness is a strange thing. It doesn't come with words, it comes with time. And scars." One evening, after the kids went to bed, I found her sitting on the porch, smoking a cigarette she probably shouldn't have had. The air smelled like pine and rain. She looked at me and said softly, "You saved me. I don't deserve it." "You're right," I said. "You don't, but your kids do." Tears filled her eyes. "Then I'll do whatever it takes to be someone they can love again." For the first time, I believed she meant it. But just as peace began to settle over us, the storm returned. A letter arrived in the mail. No stamp, no return address. Inside, just one sentence: "We never forget those who betray us." Vanessa's face went pale. "Liv, they're not done." I tried to tell her it was just a scare tactic. But the truth? I was scared too. 2 days later, she disappeared again. Her phone was left on the kitchen counter. Her clothes still in the closet. The only thing missing was her purse and the kid's photo from the fridge. A month passed. Then 2. No sign of Vanessa. The police searched but found nothing. Part of me hated her for leaving again. Another part feared she hadn't left by choice. I went back to work, raised Ethan and Lily, tried to build a normal life again. The kids were thriving. Ethan joined soccer. Lily loved painting. But every time I tucked them into bed, I wondered if Vanessa was out there somewhere, watching, hiding, or maybe gone forever. Then one morning, while getting ready for court, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I love them." My breath caught. "Vanessa?" I typed back. No response. Hours later, the police called. A car had been found at the bottom of a ravine outside Portland. No passengers, no body. Just a burned-out wreck, and a bracelet they identified as hers. They called it an accident. I wasn't so sure. The kids cried for days. I told them Mommy had gone to heaven, that she loved them more than anything. That night, after putting them to sleep, I stood by the window, staring at the stars. Sometimes I think about how easy it is to lose everything, how one bad choice can destroy a lifetime of love. But I also think about second chances, and how even broken people can leave something beautiful behind. Ethan once asked me, "Aunt Liv, do you think Mommy can see us?" I smiled. "I think she can." He grinned. "Then I want her to see we're okay." And we were. We really were. But as I turned off the lights and headed upstairs, something glinted on the doorstep, a small envelope. Inside, a single photo. Vanessa sitting in a cafe somewhere sunny, smiling. On the back, 3 words written in her handwriting. "Still watching over." I laughed through my tears. Because even after everything, the lies, the pain, the chaos, she was still my sister. And no matter where she was, a part of her would always live here, in the laughter of her children and the lessons she left behind. The world can break you. Family can betray you. But love, real love, always finds a way to heal what's left.